Florida's former real estate boom that we saw during the pandemic is quickly turning into a bust as inventory piles up across the state and home prices are dropping like crazy. And as a Florida resident, I can speak to this personally, having witnessed a lot of the changes that have happened prior to the real estate boom, during, and now after. Now, a lot of people did get lucky and took advantage of this time frame and were able to buy homes for half of what it cost a few years ago and turn around and double their money. I mean, it was not uncommon for people to buy a house for 200 grand 5 years ago and then turn around and sell it for 400 grand within the past couple of years. But in order to understand what happened here, you kind of have to go back 5 years in the past and see what actually happened. And we had a confluence of things that pushed Florida real estate prices up. You had a lot of people move here during the pandemic, being one of the only states that was open, especially a lot of remote workers that didn't have to be tied down to an office in any certain part of the country. In fact, from April of 2020 to July of 2024, Florida received 1.8 million new residents. And during that same time frame, over 760,000 homes were built, which increased the housing supply here in Florida by a whopping 8%. And that might not sound like much, but in just 4 years' time to increase the housing supply by 8% is quite a bit. At the very, very highest, real estate prices here in Florida peaked at around $423,000 in 2024, which was up about 61% from the prices we saw in 2020. But fast forward to 2025, we're seeing a very different scenario where home prices are starting to fall as inventory picks up. Because right now, the entire nation is facing an affordability crisis when it comes to mortgage rates and prices being too high. Add in extremely high homeowners insurance rates here in Florida, it's a recipe for disaster. Also, the condo market has gotten leveled at the same exact time due to the condo collapse in Surfside back in 2021. Now, many buildings across Florida are being forced to have reserve accounts that they didn't have to have before, seeing massive special assessments to make emergency building repairs. And a lot of people can't afford it. Many people are selling these condos, and most people don't want to buy it and pick up the burden. And to make things even worse for Florida, you can see pretty much since 2021, the migration trends have been on the decline. It's not like we have a negative net migration. There's still people moving here, but the amount of people coming in has slowed down significantly. In fact, it has slowed down to below levels that we saw before the pandemic. And the crazy thing is, when you look around most of Florida right now, home builders are still building homes basically all over the state as if none of this is actually happening. But that's going to be good news for any would-be buyers who've been thinking about moving to Florida or who live here now and just can't afford prices where they're at. Because as this inventory continues to stack, more and more home sellers are slashing prices. And there's many areas across Florida right now that are already 10% cheaper than they were a couple of years ago. And I know 10% might not sound like a lot, but you have to understand, because prices went up so high, that a 10% reduction in price is equal to more like a 15 or 20% reduction in price if you would have had that same price reduction 5 years ago. But a lot of people have just kind of had it with the weather here in Florida, the hurricanes coming pretty much every season, the unpredictability with that, the problems with flooding, problems with homeowners insurance, and a lot of people are just cashing out now and taking their money off the table. A lot of them are making profits still, and they're moving to other states where it's a little bit more relaxed and it's a little bit less risky in terms of natural disasters. But the problem lies with home sellers, because home sellers are still in complete denial of where the market is here in Florida right now. And you can tell that just by the initial asking price that many of these listings come up at. And most of these homes, they sit on the market for 3-6 months, sometimes a year or longer, because the price is so unrealistic in today's market. And I don't know if this is a problem that sellers are being stubborn and they just refuse to sell for less, or real estate agents are over-promising and under-delivering. I would imagine it is a combination of both. And the buyers that are out there are in no hurry to go out and pull a trigger, especially with the amount of choices that are available today. Buyers have more choices than they've had in 5 years and can afford to wait and they can afford to put out many different lowball offers until somebody agrees to sell. Even me personally, I would like to buy a house here in Florida somewhere, probably in the northern part of the state, but I'm gonna wait, guys, because I'm checking this market regularly. I live here and I see nothing but inventory trends completely exploding, and the amount of price cuts on the market going down, the amount of sales going down. It's becoming the perfect storm for somebody who actually wants to buy a house here. Wow, take a look at this. What is that? Don't ask me what that is. I've never seen a lizard like that before here. And the thing is, this is not just a Florida problem anymore either. This issue is starting to spread out to other regions of the country, most notably cities like Atlanta, Georgia, Phoenix, Arizona, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Denver, Colorado, which we'll dive into in a little bit here because Denver is starting to get hit just as hard as Florida now. And listen, this is actually very good news, even if you're a seller, because you can still sell most likely at a profit unless you bought within the last 2 years, then maybe you can't. But if you bought 5 years ago or longer, there's a high probability you're going to be able to still sell at a profit. It's not going to be as high as a profit as it was 2 years ago, but it's still going to be a handsome profit enough for you to walk away with some extra cash to get into another home. And by the way, anybody out there who needs a real estate agent, feel free to use my services. I can set you up with a real estate agent 100% for free, whether you need a buyer's agent or a seller's agent anywhere in the United States. All you got to do is use my link down in the description below, and somebody from my team will reach out to you ASAP. But listen, this is not game over for Florida, because as somebody who's lived here now for 17 plus years, I basically lived half my life here in Florida now. I can tell you that Florida definitely still has long-term appeal. Affordability is the biggest challenge right now, but that's not going to be much of a challenge in the next 2 to 3 years if the trends keep going in this direction. So ultimately, I'm bullish on Florida in the long run. In the short run, we're going to see prices come down pretty substantially, which is going to be great if you're somebody that wants to buy. And even if you own a house right now and you're not planning on selling, you can take advantage of having lower property taxes, because when home prices come down and valuations come down, you should be able to protest your tax bill and actually get a lower property tax rate. And being able to afford the home you're currently in should become slightly more affordable. But honestly, if it wasn't for the hurricanes and the crazy heat here during the summer, I think Florida would be literally the perfect place to live, because we have no state income taxes. It's still relatively affordable compared to a lot of the other very expensive states. And there's so much to do here. It's such a beautiful place. And I think that appeal alone is what's going to keep people coming here, especially once prices start to come down. Now, what about Denver, Colorado? This area is seeing a huge increase in inventory, just like in Florida, and nobody is buying. In fact, as of May of 2025 here, there was about 13,600 active listings, which is up 13.67% month over month, and it's the highest amount of listings Denver has had since 2011. The number of homes for sale in Denver is higher than it was before the pandemic, and prices are only just now beginning to slip a little bit. In May of 2024, the median closing price on a home was $600,000 versus April of 2019, it was $438,000. So it's still quite a bit more expensive than it was pre-pandemic, but these price declines in the market correction always has to start somewhere. And right now, the real estate experts are predicting that home prices in Denver, Colorado are going to drop 9.1% over the next year if these inventory trends continue. And like I said before, like with the Florida home price drops, 9.1% might not sound like a lot considering how much prices went up, but that is a huge amount of prices to drop in just 1 year. Because you have to understand, if prices were to continue to fall at that rate for 3 years in a row, you're talking about 30% reduction in home prices in just 3 years. So it is significant and it adds up. And the way home prices correct or crash is it never happens all at once. It's over a long extended period of time. And basically, you're starting to see the same dynamic play out between buyers and sellers in Denver as in Florida. sellers are pricing the homes too high, and those homes sit on the market and get completely ignored, and the homes that are priced correctly go under contract within just 12 days. So this trend is becoming clear that home buyers are wisening up across the country and starting to more fully understand what the fair market value of a home should be, and they're not willing to overpay anymore like they were 3 years ago. And one of the biggest arguments I see against home prices coming down are two things. One, inflation, and two is immigration. People say that because we're still going to see positive immigration into the United States, as well as inflation continue to go up, that home prices will not come down. But we're already seeing home prices come down right now. So to say that is basically denying the data and denying the truth of what's actually happening right before all of our eyes to witness. You can't say something isn't happening when it literally is happening and everybody can look at it and see that it is. This is not a secret. So basically, Denver's housing market is overflowing with inventory, home buyers are pushing back, and sky-high prices combined with tough borrowing conditions right now, and the amount of time that homes are sitting on the market is pushing Denver to a tipping point, and it's pretty much mirroring what's happening here in Florida. And it's just going to be interesting to see where's going to be the next markets to fall. You know, we're already seeing a lot of weakness in the markets I mentioned, like Denver, like Phoenix, like Atlanta, like Raleigh, all of Florida, all of Texas for the most part. Like, it's coming, guys. If it's not happening where you live right now, there's a chance that it's going to come at some point in the next couple of years. And listen, some areas may not even get hit at all. I'm not saying that everywhere in the United States, every single county and city in America is going to get hit with major home price declines. It's not what the message I'm trying to put out here on the channel. What I'm trying to tell people is that it's possible to happen no matter where you live, and if you're not paying attention, it might catch you by surprise. So whether you're a buyer or a seller, you need to be paying attention to this stuff. I mean, just take a look around here, guys. I'm not even gonna show all these listings here, but I'm standing on this almost corner here. There's 3 houses for sale here. You got this waterfront mansion, and then right across the street, you got that house for sale and that house for sale. And I must have walked by at least 6 or 7 other houses just on the few blocks I've been down here. I see people commenting like, yeah, I see a lot of houses for sale in the videos, Michael. Like, yeah, there are a lot of houses for sale here and most of them aren't selling. And there's so many that I haven't even been putting them in the videos lately, because then the whole video would just be me showing you the listings for sale here in Miami. Now, one subject when it comes to home sales that I don't cover that often, but I've talked about this a couple times, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and that is capital gains taxes and how it's affecting the current market and the inventory that's on the market right now. Because back in 1997, Congress established a capital gains tax exemption of up to $500,000 for married couples on the profit when you sell your home, which means that if you sell your house and you make $500,000 in profit, then that $500,000 will not be taxed at all. Unless you make more than that, then you will pay long-term capital gains taxes or short-term capital gains taxes depending on how long you've owned the home. The problem is housing prices have increased significantly in the past 28 years, as we all know, and the size of the capital gains exemption has stayed exactly the same. This hasn't been adjusted for inflation. And this makes that exemption significantly less valuable than it was almost 30 years ago, especially in expensive markets like California, Florida, and New York. In fact, about 8% of homes sold in the US in 2023 exceeded the capital gains tax limit of $500,000 for married couples, compared to only 3% of sales that took place in 2019. So that is more than double. Back in 1997, when they first established this exemption, only 1.3% of existing home sales exceeded that limit. So as you can see, the amount of home sales exceeding that limit is continuing to rise. And ultimately, what happens is it causes more people to hang on to their home for longer, especially if they don't want to get hit with that capital gains tax. So a lot of people are advocating that the federal government needs to change this tax code and update it for modern home prices. A lot of older people are hanging on to their homes way longer than they want to, especially married couples that would benefit if they were to update this tax law. And then if you're looking at high tax states as well, they can compound the problem, because they want their chunk as well when you sell and make a profit. In fact, in some states, you can pay a total capital gains tax of about 30% on the sale of your home, depending on where you live. So a lot of people know this and they're like, yeah, I think it's better to just hang on to this house and not sell it. And I'm not saying that we have an inventory shortage in the United States anymore, because we definitely don't. We've already reached pre-pandemic levels of inventory on the US housing market. So it's not like we need these people to sell, and eventually they will, whether it's through an inheritance and they pass that home down to one of their children, or they decide the house just isn't for them any longer and cannot wait anymore. I did want to show one house for sale here because I figured this would be the cheapest one since it's on this busy street over here. And this house was purchased just a little over a year ago in March of 2024 for $2,060,000. And then they turned around at the end of last year and listed it for sale for $2.4 million, and have quickly cut the price by $200K. And now they're down to $2.2 million 6 months later with no buyers. This house behind me here is literally the definition of the Florida housing market right now. I'm not saying all homes are listed for $2 million, but looking at the situation, how somebody paid a certain amount for the house, they're trying to sell it for significantly more than they bought it for. It's not working. They're having to slash the prices tremendously, and it's still not selling. That is what's happening all across the state. But back to the capital gains taxes, this is something that I was also kind of hinting at in a video I made a couple weeks ago, where you have a lot of senior citizens who are house rich and cash poor. And if they were to up this capital gains exemption, it would allow a lot of seniors and people who have owned these homes for a long time to sell, get out of the house, and not have this huge tax bill. And it would help alleviate home prices because you would see even more inventory hitting the market. And those people would finally be able to tap into that equity without doing something like a reverse mortgage. And then, of course, in states like California, you have Proposition 13, which is a further incentive to hang on to the house forever, because you lock in ultra low property taxes, especially 30, 40 years ago when a lot of these people bought, and you're even able to pass down that tax basis to somebody who inherits the house in California. So that's another reason why home prices there are so high. And the problem is, the more that home prices go up, then the higher the capital gains taxes get, and the less people want to sell and pay that capital gains tax. So let me know what you guys think. Do you see people hanging on to homes so they don't have to pay capital gains taxes? Are you seeing people not moving because they can't afford another home at today's prices? What are you seeing out there? Make sure to put it in the comments below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.